Subjected to devastating air raids, Chungking still served to men of goodwill everywhere as a symbol of the vital stake of all humanity in the worldwide struggle against the tyranny of fascism. In 1941, Chungking's hopes clung to the Burma Road, last lifeline connecting China with the resources of the democratic world through British Burma. Over this arduous route, 3,000 miles in length, constantly bombed and constantly repaired by millions of endlessly laboring coolies, precious war supplies trickled into Chiang Kai-shek's forces in quantities pitifully small and at an almost prohibitive cost. Finally, in 1942, with the road cut off by Britain's defeat in Burma, Japan was able to conquer much and blockade all of China. Then, in November of 1943, Chiang Kai-shek met in conference with Franklin Roosevelt and Winston Churchill. At Cairo, Chiang was given assurance that all the territories Japan had stolen from China would be returned to her at war's end. Yet, despite the assistance of the democracies, China's armies, due in part to her lately and inadequately developed industries, were still poorly equipped and supplied according to Western standards. Yet Chinese troops, when properly equipped and led, had proved themselves to be the masters of Japan's tough and fanatical warriors. And drawing upon the fathomless sources of endurance with which China's people are endowed, the government of Free China continued to fight in the face of inadequate material and internal dissensions. Responsible for the difficult task of waging China's war was the Supreme National Defense Council, which operated under grave handicaps. Lacking supplies and transportation facilities, plagued by inefficiency and graft in the battle against Japan, the Council also faced the problem of the Chinese Communists. In the north, thousands of square miles of territory and some 80 million people were controlled in defiance of the Kuomintang by Mao Tse-Tung and his communist armies. That the split between China's communists and the Kuomintang government had hampered the fight against the Japanese was obvious through World War II. And even after peace had been declared, strife still continued between the communists and the Chungking government. In the Chinese communist areas were some 500,000 troops, many of them tough veteran fighters. Lacking equipment, they had been able to fight the Japanese with only partial effectiveness. But being a powerful and cohesive force, they came to rule the people in their own areas with an iron hand. Organized as a separate government, a state within a state, the communists had their own printing plants, their own money, and their own press. But they allowed no word against their regime to see print, and freedom of speech in the communist areas was even more restricted than it was in Chungking. Though the Chinese had begun to master the engineering techniques of the Western world, the industrial establishment upon which their war effort depended was still pitifully meager. Though she had resources in coal and iron, yet her steel production was less than 1,000th part of what the U.S. commanded. But skills acquired by workers in the peacetime mills of Shanghai were put to use in the cotton mills of Free China, 1,400 miles inland. And in the silk mills, where cocoons are sorted and inspected in the ancient time-honored manner, one of China's oldest industries learned to adapt itself to the manufacture of parachutes for American and Chinese flyers. guidance of experienced engineers, graduates for the most part of American universities, China's war production factories solved the complex problems of manufacturing delicate electrical equipment. In war plants, many Chinese peasants working with modern machinery added to the supply of skilled manpower, which will achieve its full utility and influence in peacetime. Under her vigorous and efficient Minister of Communications, Zheng Yangfu, China did her utmost to counteract the devastating effects of the years of war. China built dozens of great air bases for the U.S. Air Forces. That her efforts were as effective as they were was due to her limitless source of labor. Millions of Chinese peasants and coolies toiled endlessly at the bitter task of building for 20th century warfare with 10th century tools. Under the influence of the West, a whole new system of education has developed. Whereas in 1911, China's masses were almost completely illiterate, and her curriculum was confined to her ancient classics, today great numbers of Chinese are trained according to modern theories of education. China's universities, students are being taught to understand and work with the techniques of the 20th century. A significant educational trend is China's Youth Corps, in whose martial display foreign liberals see a potential threat to their hopes for a democratic China. But to many Chinese, this corps is a sign of progress. Since many of the future leaders of China will come from the Youth Corps, its members must acquire a first-hand knowledge of the problems of the peasants in preparation for the day when they will go out into the villages as political tutors. China's future constitutional republic is based on local government in her 2,000 counties or xians. And today, representatives of the national government are charged with explaining to the peasants the workings of the xian system. First, household heads choose representatives of their village. Then, village and town representatives meet to form a county or xian council. In 2 years, the national government developed the reformed xian system in 80% of the total area of free China. Though in many a xian, rice tax collections from peasants have been the private preserve of corrupt gentry and landowners, the Chinese people are demanding reform of the tax system at the earliest possible moment. Meanwhile, participation by millions of people in local xian elections is counted on to spread throughout China a practical experience of modern democratic methods. Thus, with the barriers separating China from the West broken down, with communications linking this vast land as never before, China today is a changing culture in a changing world. Hoping to harness the might of her millions to the wheels of modern industry, free China is determined that her people shall at last live as befits their ancient dignity.